I wanted to see if I could automate virtual machine deployments. I've set a few rules. No pressure. We've mostly implemented our loop, but we still have to write a little bit of code to define the test that tells the decision which way to go. So let's go see how to do that. But we have one more thing we need to do. We have to have some sort of test to know whether we've created all the VMs that we want to. Well, how do we know how many VMs we want to create? Why don't we do this? Why don't we go create an input? And I'm going to ask whoever runs this workflow, how many virtual machines do you want to create? So we'll say new. I'm going to call this how many virtual machines. And since I want the end user, I may regret this, but I'm going to let the end user set the number of virtual machines that we're creating. Again, by creating an input, that gives the user control. So let's type our description. And this is not a string. This needs to be a number. So type number. It shows you all the types that match number. Make certain that you select number. It's not enough just to type number. You have to select it. Go ahead and click on create. And now we have an input that the user supplies that lets us know how many virtual machines they want created. Let's go back to our schema, and we're going to select our decision because we still need to define the code that determines how this decision works. The basic test is going to be to see if we've created enough virtual machines. Now, in order to do that, we're going to need to work with two inputs. One is the counter variable, and the other is the how many virtual machines variable. Since we're working with two, a simple decision will not work for our purposes. A simple decision will only work if you have just one input. We have two, so we're going to choose complex, and we'll next define what the inputs are. So we'll go down to the input section, and in here, we're going to bring in those two pieces of information. We're going to bring in the counter, and we're going to bring in the how many virtual machines variable. So let's bring those in. Actually, I take that back. Counter is a variable, and how many virtual machines is an input. All right, next what we need to do is to define the actual code itself. So to do so, we will go down to the bottom where you have the scripting section. And in here, let me type in our code. And as you can see, our code is fairly straightforward. We are simply comparing the two variables, so counter the variable and how many virtual machines the input, to see if we have created enough virtual machines. If we have not, then we will return true, which will put us into the loop again. On the other hand, if we have created enough virtual machines, we will leave the loop. We'll return false, which will cause us to leave the loop. Now, as a added bonus here down on line number 7, I've added a comment out line. If you were to uncomment out those lines, that line number 7 does the exact same things as lines 1 through 5 in a more terse fashion. So if you want to, you can delete lines 1 through 5, undelete line 7, and the code will do the exact same thing. Okie doke. We've completely implemented our loop, and now our workflow is ready to run. Join me in the next video and let's see this new workflow in action.